Welcome to Spiritual Calisthenics. Christ is in our midst. Today we commemorate the Sunday of St. John of the Ladder, St. John Climacus. On March 30th, we commemorate the memory of St. John Climacus, the righteous, author of the Ladder of Divine Ascent. St. Sosthenes, Apollos, Cephas, Caesar, and Epaphroditos, the apostles of the 70, and St. Zacharias the New Martyr. The Sunday of St. John Climacus. The memory of this saint is celebrated March 30th, where his biography may be found. He is celebrated today because his book, The Ladder of Divine Ascent, is a sure guide to the ascetic life. Written by a great man of prayer, experienced in all forms of the monastic polity, it teaches the seeker after salvation how to lay a sound foundation for his struggles, how to detect and war against each of the passions, how to avoid the snares laid by the demons, and how to rise from the rudimental virtues to the heights of godlike love and humility. It is held in such high esteem that it is universally read in its entirety in monasteries during the Great Fast. With the rivers of your tears you have made the barren deserts fertile. Through sighs and sorrows from deep within you your labors have borne fruit 100-fold. By your miracles you have become a light shining around the world. O John, our Father, pray to Christ our God to save our souls. It's been said by many church fathers that if all you had was the scriptures and the ladder, you would be okay. Regarding St. John Climacus, the righteous author of the Divine Ladder of Ascent, this saint gave himself over to ascetical life from his early youth, experienced both in the solitary life of the hermit and the communal life of the Cenobitic monasticism. He was appointed abbot of the monastery at Mount Sinai and wrote a book containing 30 homilies on virtue. Each homily deals with one virtue, and progressing from those that deal with holy and righteous activity, praxis, unto those that deal with divine wisdom and with divine vision, theoria. Oftentimes we hear this orthopraxia and orthodoxia. And so the idea of love and all of these things is not attainable for us unless we can achieve holy action. And so this is the guidebook allowing us to reach ascetical heights. This is why St. John of the Ladder is used on the fourth Sunday of Great Lent to remind us of prayer and fasting and the ascetical struggles that lead us to salvation. For this cause, his work is called the Ladder of Divine Ascent. The day he was made abbot of Sinai, the prophet Moses was seen giving commands to those who served at table. St. John reposed in 603 at 80 years of age. With the rivers of your tears you have made the barren desert fertile. Through sighs and sorrow from deep within you, your labors have borne fruit 100-fold. By your miracles you have become a light shining upon the world. O John, our Holy Father, pray to Christ our God to save our souls. The Gospel according to St. John. On the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb early while it was still dark, and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, that is, St. John the theologian, and said to them, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him." Peter then came out with the other disciple, and they went towards the tomb. They both ran, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. And stooping to look in, he saw the linen cloths lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came, following him, and went into the tomb. He saw the linen cloths lying, and the napkin which had been on his head, not lying with the linen cloths, but rolled up in a place by itself. This is significant because when Lazarus was raised from the dead, he came out in his grave clothes, completely wrapped up, symbolically showing us that he will need them again. Whereas the Lord, when he was raised from the dead, he left the grave clothes behind because he will never need them again. Then the other disciple who reached the tomb first also went in, and he saw and believed. For as yet they did not know the scripture, that he must rise from the dead. Then the disciples went back to their homes. Let's go into the epistle of St. Paul's letter to the Hebrews. Brethren, when God made a promise to Abraham, since he had no one greater by whom to swear, he swore to himself, saying, "Surely I will bless you and multiply you." And thus Abraham, having patiently endured, obtained the promise of course being his son Isaac. Men indeed swear by a greater than themselves, and in all their disputes an oath is final for confirmation. So when God desired to show more convincingly to the heirs of the promise the unchangeable character of his purpose, he interposed with an oath, so that through two unchangeable things, in which it is impossible that God should prove false, we who have fled to refuge might have a strong encouragement to seize the hope set before us. We have this as a sure and steadfast anchor of the soul, a hope that enters into the inner shrine behind the curtain, where Jesus has gone as a forerunner on our behalf, having become a high priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. As we go into the gospel, this is a very important gospel for a couple of reasons. At that time, a man came to Jesus kneeling and saying, "Teacher, I brought my son to you, for he has a dumb spirit, and wherever it seizes him, it dashes him down, and he foams and grinds his teeth, and becomes rigid." Now, there are some that looked at this and said, oh, the son's suffering from epilepsy. Well, it's not quite that simple. And we also see that the man came to Jesus calling him teacher. He didn't call him my Lord, my God. He does not quite understand yet what we're looking at here. "And I asked your disciples to cast it out, and they were not able." And he answered them, "O faithless generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you?" Now, we look at this, and it seems like Jesus Christ is getting upset. It seems like he's getting annoyed with them. But the reality is he's telling us something that's very, very important, that I'm not always going to physically be here. I'm here in the flesh right now. We just celebrated the Feast of the Annunciation, where Christ is coming into the world physically, but he's not always going to be physically there. We have to learn how to deal with these things with his help, but on our own, and he's going to show us how. "Bring him to me." And they brought the boy to him. When the spirit saw him, immediately he convulsed the boy, and he fell on the ground and rolled about, foaming at the mouth, because of course the demon can't stand to be in the presence of God. And Jesus asked his father, "How long has he had this?" And he said, "From childhood." Now this is important because this is an allegory for us. From childhood. This boy represents all of us. And what we're about to get into is how what the boy is suffering it from, we all will suffer from, and we all do suffer from. We've suffered from it since our childhood, and the only way out of it we're going to get to by the end of this gospel passage. "And it has often cast him into the fire and into the water to destroy him." Now, this again is an allegory, tossing him into the fire to try to destroy him. So he wants to burn him and he wants to drown him. Now, the way that the church fathers look at this is that the fires represent the passions that can engulf us, whether it's gluttony, pride, envy, lust, hunger, idleness. All of these things can burn us up. They can destroy us. And we've seen that with people that have addictions. On the other hand, we have water. Water can be seen as anxiety, worries, stress. You know, that expression, "I feel like I'm drowning, I can't come up for air." This is how the world attacks us, whether it is through our passions or whether it is through our anxieties. Either of those sides, the demons are trying to kill us. They're trying to crush us. And so we have to look at the antipodes of this. Fire, when it's out of control, yes, it consumes, it'll destroy us, it'll immolate us. But fire in a controlled environment is how mankind goes forward. We see this even with the Greek mythology. The man Prometheus was tortured by the gods. Why? Because he gave humans fire. It is from fire that we evolved past cavemen in order to be able to use other tools, to be able to cook, to be able to light our way. Fire in a controlled environment is valuable and good, but when it consumes us, when it is not controlled, it destroys us. Our passions are the same way. Our hunger, our pride, all of these things, when tempered, when used correctly, can be tools, can be an inverse of the other side of the coin. But when they're out of control, they destroy us. By that same token, water, which symbolizes chaos, which symbolizes the unknown, can also become something that washes away, something that cleans, something that enlivens. After all, we are made of 70% water. So the devil tries to take things that are good, things that are necessary, and make them into things that destroy us. If you can do anything, have pity on us and help us. And Jesus said to him, if you can. So Jesus Christ just turned it around on him. He said, you can do this. All things are possible to him who believes. So in other words, if the Father had belief, if the Father had faith, this would not be happening. The devil would not be able to control the boy. The boy would not be under the control of the fire, the passions. He would not be under the control of anxieties of the water. He would not be destroyed by the devil and be completely controlled by both of these forces. And the Father's response is something that has always touched me, even from a young age. Immediately the father of the child cried out and said, I believe, help my unbelief. How many of us have this? We want to believe in God. We want to believe in his promise. And yet we find ourselves constantly listening to the whispers saying, oh, is it true? Is it true? Maybe it's not true. Help my unbelief. And when Jesus saw that a crowd came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit and saying to it, you dumb and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. And after crying out and convulsing him terribly, it came out. And the boy was like a corpse, so that most of them said, he is dead. But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he rose. And when he had entered the house, the disciples asked him privately, why could we not cast it out? And he said to them, this kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer and fasting. Meaning that when we pray, we develop a relationship with God. The devil is able to come in when we do not have that relationship, when we are alone. Fasting helps us control things. If I can control my belly, I can control my anger. When we have these things, we can have control and a relationship with God, which makes us shielded from the evil one. Then they went on there and passed through Galilee, and he would not have anyone know it. For he was teaching his disciples, saying to them, the Son of Man will be delivered into the hands of men, and they will kill him. And when he is killed, after 3 days he will rise. The faith, the belief that we need to have is in him, in his resurrection. Soon he won't be with them physically. And soon there will be generations of people that will not see Jesus Christ physically, but they will have faith and believe in him as Son, Lord, and God. I hope that you've enjoyed today's Spiritual Calisthenics. Have a blessed and wonderful day.